wall. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, we live in the 21st century. We have long since broken the glass ceiling and have 101 ways of being able to empower women. We think that in every way, shape, and form, celebrating the consumption and creation of porn by women for women is good, and this is something that benefits the feminist movement. Before I move on to my case, a few points of setup and possible preemption. The first is, this is a value judgment debate on why it is aligned with the interest of the feminist movement, given the diversity and traction they've already had the past decades. Being a woman now is significantly better than being a woman in the past. This is evident in the feminist movement accepting all sorts of strands and definitions of being a woman, because we firmly believe that there is no singular and monolithic expression or definition of what sex is, what beauty is, and what a woman should conform to be. We tell you that these women creators have further breached past the glass ceiling and have showed their capacity in an otherwise male-dominated industry, and we should celebrate that. What do we mean by celebrate? This is the second portion. We think that if you're consuming it, it's good to continue consuming it and even go behind the paywall and subscribe to these particular websites and channels. These include, but are not limited to, things like OnlyFans, pornography networks by women and for women like Nubiles, Girls Only, Beleza House, etc. Thirdly is, why the feminist movement? What is their particular interest? We tell you that all women who comprise to be part of the feminist movement have a unique opportunity to be able to rally behind these women who have proven that they have the motivation and capacity to challenge structural limitations and empower all women elsewhere. That's something that we believe is the interest of the feminist movement, and we think that these things are ultimately a part of that. Before I move on to my case, some preemptions which also serve as constructive material. The first is, opposition intuitively might tell us that, oh, you alienate and cause backlash among conservative women who are also legitimately part of the feminist movement, and that creates infighting and toxic polarization. My first level of response to preemption is that backlash is good. It leads to discourse that allows women of all demographics to be able to make an informed decision. Meaning, if you are a conservative woman or a conservative woman, you can opt out of this particular thing because you value your own religious expression more than your willingness and capacity to contribute to the feminist movement. That is a valid choice for you to be able to make. We think that both can coexist. This is because the feminist movement already subsumes allies and women from right-leaning conservative stances and also left-leaning liberal stances who don't agree on everything all of the time, because these social policies aren't black and white. Being a woman or being part of the feminist movement is not black and white. You can still be a silent ally and rally from the side. The second thing is, they might tell us that this objectifies women and genuflects to men who are the primary target market and consumer of this pornography. We reject that premise from the onset and tell you that specifically, their burden to defend the counterfactual is nuanced to pornography created by women and for women. This looks like kinks here or pornography displayed are not just meant to make men hard, because we recognize men watch this as well, but intended to make the woman climax and orgasm strongest, best, and fastest, ladies and gentlemen. And we tell you that this is the purest form of sexual expression and liberation. Moving on to my case. Why does the creation and consumption of pornography by women and for women liberate women in general, and why this is of strategic interest for the feminist movement to have to celebrate? My first level of argumentation is that it's a successful proof of concept that we have challenged structural limitations that have existed in the past. Before, these pornographic industries, whether you're a performer or you're a director or a producer, were largely male-dominated. Meaning you had to be a very successful 1% above porn star like Johnny Sins or Manuel Ferreira if you wanted to have a shot at this particular industry and maybe have stake as an owner in terms of equity. But ladies and gentlemen, we have long since unlocked new roles and ways in which women can participate. They can be part-time content performers on OnlyFans. They can also be co-producers and directors, rising their way up this rank to being an owner of a particular franchise. Like what we saw with Caden Cross, for instance, like what we saw with Asa Akira, successful exemplars of women who have pushed this glass ceiling further. This has three impacts. The first is empowerment for these women entrepreneurs who have broken the glass ceiling and extended it farther. The second is, it fuels their economic interest and capacity to be able to contribute back to the feminist movement more because now they are able to take care of themselves. And lastly, it challenges the lens and definition of sex. Why is that important? The third one. Because this used to be a monopoly by the patriarchy, wherein men would gaslight women and you had a double standard. You would be labeled a slut or a whore if you expressed your sexual liberation, but if a man did it just the same, they would be called a player, an alpha, a top G, like Andrew Tate. Look at that polarization. We have long since evolved past that, ladies and gentlemen, and we think that women who wear skimpy outfits aren't skimpy at all. It's completely legitimate to wear sleeveless clothing and ultimately shorter skirts. We think that the impact here is that it celebrates the sexuality of women, and this is also nuanced the female consumption. This actually is the purest form of expression, and this allows the capacity for sexual discovery. Second is that this is a legitimate expression of sexuality, ultimately from a woman's perspective. Your sexual awakening with porn for a woman is no longer dictated by a man producer or a man director. That is to say, things that were considered taboo or weird before, like lesbian sex or trans pornography, are now legitimate genres and growing categories among the porn industry. Before, you had to be at the mercy of a man and his scenes, and ultimately participate in a bukkake or a gangbang with multiple men. Ladies and gentlemen, this is good, this empowers women, and sexual liberation is the best way to do it. It's in their interest to celebrate these particular industries. We are very proud to open this debate.